Hello, so tonight we are talking about TLD RPG on the TTRPG flip through. So this book initially caught my attention because of this spectacular, attention-grabbing art style. This cover is really bold, really draws you in. And then as you flip through the book, there are lots of surprises in here in terms of the artwork, full-scale pictures that pop up here, very bold, as well as some wonderful guest art. In addition to that, but this is actually a system first book. This is TLD RPG. It's really about streamlining the traditional D&D play structure down to its bare bones into a streamlined D6 dice pool system. So I'm excited to flip through this with you. Let's do it. So this is TLD RPG, a rules-like game from Billy Blue. He is the artist creator. You will see his artwork throughout this, along with some special guest art. For example, this little picture right here in the corner, this is from Michael Harmon. Here's your table of contents. It starts off with character creation, then goes into the rules, and ends with the character sheet. So you can see the character creation is pretty basic. There's a fair amount of pages dedicated to rules, but it is fairly straightforward and simple from about this point forward on. It's not really rules, it's bestiary and loot and tables and the adventure. So it starts off TLD RPG, TLD for short. It's a rules light role-playing game designed to get you and your friends into the action as quickly as possible. So that's really what it is. The idea is the learning curve is simpler because you're not having to explain we're rolling 3d6, but we're only making modifiers. And you have this whole list of skills you have to think about. It's really about getting you, I think, up and running and into that action probably in 30 minutes. So what you need, pencil, character sheet, a few friends, some d6. Very accessible, emphasizing that accessibility. And then let's jump into character creation here. You start off assigning attribute points here. I did whip up a little minimalist character sheet here, so I thought I would fill this out as I went through. We're going to have Doug here. I love using Doug as a placeholder name. I think it's kind of a funny placeholder name. So Doug here, when you start off the game, you have 1 point in each attribute. And again, it's stripped down. So instead of having 6, you've just got the 3, body, mind, spirit. Spirit in this one is not, normally in spirit, I see it applied to like some sort of soul or spiritual. This is actually applies to your dexterity and finesse. So it's more of that roguish ability. And finesse applying both to your physical and kind of your mental finesse, such as your ability to haggle. So characters start off with 5 XP, and this is a classless system, so you're using your XP to level up your attributes, and that's all the XP is used for. And then as you level up, you get your abilities. So and to level up, it's very straightforward. To get to body 2, I have to spend 2 XP. To get to body 3, to get from 2 to 3, I would have to spend 3 XP. So to get to body 3, I'm going to have to spend in total 5 XP. 2 to get to level 2, 3 to get to level 3. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to spend all my XP to bring him up to body 5 or body 3. And mind 1, spirit 1. So there we go. This is Doug. He's a bruiser. And that's it. Now you could also, if with your 5 XP, you could also say I'm going to do body 2, mind 2, spirit 1, because that would be 2 XP to get body 2, mind to get 2 to get mind 2. And then you would have 1 XP to use later. So those are really your options to start off with. Then you take these, we'll translate these into HP. Body is, HP is body plus 3, so that's 6. We're going to go 6 over 6. Mana is used for your mind abilities, your spells. It's going to be 2. And then luck, we have 2 over 2. And that's used for spirit abilities, and those recharge in a different way. So again, it tells you here what it is. Those don't recharge after a rest. Those are only given to you by the GM ad hoc or during certain rolls, during critical failures. After that, you get to choose your abilities, and you get one ability for each of these attribute points. So I actually get 3 body abilities, 1 mind ability, and 1 spirit ability. And abilities are kind of like your class features. Some are passive, some are active. So here's an example of a mind ability. A mind ability could be barrier, which is a spell. It could be fireball, which is a spell. So, and the thing to notice about this is because it's classless, I'm not restricted. If I want Doug here to have fireball, he can have fireball. So let's do that. He's going to have fireball level 1. It's not going to be a powerful fireball because it can only spend, up to 2 mana on it. But if he does, he can whip out a little fireball. Doesn't matter that he's not a wizard because there are no wizards. Let's give him a few other things. Body. I'm just going to give him something quick here. He's going to be, like I said, he's a bruiser. He's going to gash. He's going to be able to cause bleeding on people. He's going to have a battle cry. And he's going to have a bloodlust. Since there's a little bit of a feature in this system around blood. So if you can get people bleeding and use bloodlust, and there's a few other blood-related abilities that can stack. So there is some crunch here and some optimization, but it is really stripped down. And the way that I would think about all of these abilities is these are really ideas. These are frameworks for you to build on and make your own. Look, this is a 100-page book. It's not going to cover everything. So you have to think about this as a way to, it's giving you a blueprint for how you can build these things on your own and expand on them in the future. Or just use them in this limited capacity for your short casual games with your friends. The other thing you'll get so after that, we get a skill. And a skill, it's not a big skill list. They are, you only get 1 to start off with, and you get 1 more if you manage to level up one of your abilities to 7, you can get another one. But they can be kind of, acrobatics or sneaking or culinary prowess or ruins. And they can be kind of broad. And the idea is you use them creatively to give yourself a bonus when you're rolling. So we're going to say that he is good at breaking stuff. He was like a demo man. So whenever he is using one of his abilities or making a check, when he's breaking something or demolishing something, he's going to be really good at it. And so he's going to get an extra roll, and he's not going to be penalized during failures. So again, no long skill list. Again, these skills are players and GMs are encouraged to add to this list. GM has the final say, still giving the GM that referee standpoint. And I think it's important in this system. It very clearly gives the GM a little bit more power. Since it is a rules light system, it's going to be more rulings over rules. So it's good to give that authority to the GM to keep things consistent. All right, now since we've got our skill, you gather your equipment. For this one, it just says pick or make up a starting weapon. Make it whatever you want. All you got to do is make sure that you know the weight category of it. So I'm going to have a big old, like a 2-handed cleaver. And then I'll go back and fill out these details later. But that's really all that you need to do on that side. And you can have a weapon, shield, armor. It doesn't really say you can't have anything. So when you're starting off for survivability, it's probably good to beef up, give yourself that armor that you need. It also gives you a little HP. So even though that this does kind of set you up as this is a high mortality game, there's actually a lot of elements to protect you in the beginning from death. So I think that's good too. If you're going into this dungeon crawl scenario, gives the players lots of outs. And then finally, it's assumed that you're carrying most of everything that you would normally need as a hero, but it does encourage you to take stock of those and write those down here, noting that you do have a limit to how much you can carry. So in this case, I have 7 slots. This two-handed weapon, I think, takes up 4. So I only have 3 slots left, but it says, you can combine things. Again, it's basically, don't worry too much about the minutia of encumbrance. That's not really what this game is about, but keep a loose track of it. So we flip over here again, the surprising artwork here, this really kind of dark artwork. I really think that underneath this the system neutral, setting neutral book, it is pointing towards this kind of old school, grim, dark setting underneath it. And I think that's probably where the sweet spot of the mechanics are. Gives you, again, this idea of leveling up, and I already went over that with you, of how you really only are leveling up your abilities. When you get to the 3rd, you get a perk, so he's going to have +1 on his melee already. So that's really great to start off with. And then you earn XP and luck in certain situations. So on critical failures or difficult successes, for great role play, for finishing difficult battle, for revealing his secrets. And with this system, I would be pretty generous with my XP. You probably are not going to play a long campaign with this game. And so I think I would like to ramp my characters up very quickly so they can be using as many of the abilities that they have here as quickly as they can. Again, giving you the skill list, this idea of skills, going over those perks, which I talked about. Your level 7 perk is that you get another skill. And then going into detail about all the abilities. So the abilities here, again, they're broken down by mind, body, spirit. There are also neutral abilities. We do have to fill a spirit ability out. But mind abilities, again, examples. These are common spells. A lot of these are common spells. So you will see heal on the same side as fireball. So that means there's not that sort of cleric, healing, wizard, offensive spell division. So again, very flexible system. I really like the control light spell in this system, by the way. It talks about throwing an adhesive globe of light or darkness. Never really encountered that idea in terms of a light spell before, or at least in a game setting like this. I think it's a really novel idea. I definitely will be using that. I would say that it does give you higher power spells at a lower level here. So that would be something to keep track of. Like, you're given you could possibly have invisibility to start off with. So keep that in mind as you are designing or thinking of encounters here. And what your characters are doing. I might toss some wrenches into that idea just to bring things down a little bit, or make sure that people don't exploit it too much. On the body and abilities, you're getting a lot of those combat abilities, some things that give you stun, or things like sweep the leg that will knock people down. There's a little bit of humorous titles thrown in here throughout. And again, I'm kind of glossing over it here, but look at this great artwork again. The full color here. I was just surprised to see this color popped out here, matched by the text on the right side here. This great werewolf. And you can see as you're going through here, a lot of these combat abilities are dropping conditions on people. Delirium, dazed. So there is, like I said, there's just a little touch of crunch in here, really combat focused. Your spirit abilities, some of these are charm, some of these are dodging. So in this system, the GM does not roll very much. The players are the ones who are rolling most of the time. So when a monster attacks, the player is making the dodge roll. And again, here on the spirit one, some of these, like haste, you get additional action on your next turn. This would allow a second attack with a heavy weapon. Well, that's great. Let's do that. My spirit is going to be haste. That seems really strong, but again, the limiting factor here is its luck, and I only have 2 luck here, so and to do this, I have to do it next turn. It doesn't give me an additional attack right away. It's sort of like a charge up. There are some miscellaneous abilities. There are some abilities related to a longer campaign, like repair and power nap. I think there's an interesting mechanism with armor and repair as sort of keeping you being able to go without necessarily doing long rests all the time. But again, some of these I think are only going to come in when you're doing those mini campaigns. And then there are some ultimate abilities, but these ultimate abilities are neutral in flavor. They are more related to the dice. So you kind of have to think of the ultimate abilities as, I am so strong that I am bending reality to do the things that I want to do. And just doing that in different ways. So playing the game here, it talks about the test. So instead of, D&D would be a check, you have your test. Whenever there is something interesting in the game and there's a chance of failure, you take a test. Normally you are building dice pools. So if it's just a body test, I would roll 3 dice. But let's say I'm using my body test to break bars. Since my skill is breaking stuff, it would be 4 dice. You want to lean into your skills as much as possible. Certain equipment might bump it up even more. Someone's helping you, it could give you a +1. If the GM gives you an advantage, and as a GM for the system, I would be generous with my advantages because the dice pool system can make things difficult. Success is not guaranteed. So you can be bumping up to 5, 6 dice, and you're trying to roll 6s, similar to Forbidden Lands. There is no partial success here. There is an ability to bump a dice, and that means before you do a roll, you can spend a luck or mana to give yourself an extra dice on the test, and they encourage you to do that in the system. Encourage your players to use their resources to get these extra dice bumps. And it does give you a idea here of what the percentages of success are like. And I think it's important to note that you're not getting above 50%. You're barely getting above 50% at 4 dice. So at my 3 body, I'm still failing 50% of the time. So you got to think about that. I would say 4 is like kind of your standard heroic test. Like if I am a 3 body and I am leaning into my skill and I'm still only getting it half the time, like that must be something that's pretty heroic and hard to do. And again, like note it that even when you're getting to 8 dice, you're only succeeding 3/4 of the time. So really paying attention to that curve here and understanding that there's going to be more back and forth because there's going to be a fair amount of failure. But the system is quick, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Critical failures and successes. So I'm going to break out the dice here for a quick second. When you get to 2 dice in the system, then you can start potentially rolling crits. And crits are, as you see here, a double 6. You could also get a critical failure, a double 1, or a difficult success, which would be a 1 and a 6 on the crit dice. So when you have an ability of 2, you are only rolling these crit dice. I got a 6 and a 2. That's a success, but nothing else. When you are, let's say I have 6 dice pool, I'm still going to be rolling just those 2 critical dice. Oh my gosh, I got the double 1. So that's going to be snake eyes. So even though I got a success here, this is a great example. I'm glad this rolled up. Even though I got the success here, the critical dice are going to overturn that, and I'm going to get a critical failure. That means something terrible happens to me. I'll probably get damage, and I will get a status ability. I could drop my weapon. I could trip. The other thing that happens, though, is because I get this, I'm also going to get 1 XP and 1 luck. So great. Now instead of at 0 XP, I've now got my 1 XP, and my luck, if it was below 2, now it's up to 2 again. So you're not getting totally penalized for failures here. That can also happen on a difficult success. So let's say I get a 1 and a 6. Then the player gets to choose, do I get the bonus or do I take the XP and luck? So it's kind of a devil's bargain, maybe you could say, for the player there. Now it talks about combat. Surprise and initiative are straightforward, very similar to D&D. If you are aware you're getting an action, you might get an extra bonus on the dice roll, or you do get an extra bonus on the dice roll. Initiative is a d6 plus spirit, again, spirit being sort of that dexterity type dice. And it does say for simpler, just have the GM do 1 and the PCs do 1. So again, giving you that quick option. And then combat is very simple. There's 5 things you can do. You can move, you can attack, you can use an ability, you can focus or parry. Now, the move, attack, and use an ability are all, I think, pretty straightforward. Movement, again, there is no, there is sort of a zone system, again, similar to if you played Alien or a Free League game. There's just different distances, and you're moving within those distances, so you're not counting squares. You can attack. When you're attacking, you can either use mind to do a magic attack, spirit to do a ranged attack, so if you are using the bow, or body to do your melee attack. So just the straight rolls there. Again, you're probably going to be wanting to try to use something where you can use your skill and max that out. But then the 2 things that are not in the normal game are in classic D&D. Focus. So that's going to be an action that's going to give you a 1 plus 1d on your next action. So that's like, I'm going to take a shot, but I'm going to focus before it, or I'm going to take a swing or focus before it. So that's a nice ability to add to your dice pool, which I think counteracts some of that high failure percentage. And then there is parrying, where you can sort of take a defensive stance and give yourself 1d. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. Like you could take an attack, you could parry, you could focus, take an attack, you could move and parry. There's a nice simplicity, but a fair amount of flexibility with what you could do. So again, I think this game shines in those sort of quick combat situations. Death here is 0 is death. They do give you an optional rule that you could have if you heal someone before their body, before body rounds, you could bring them back. I think that would probably be fun because it gives you a chance to bring people back, and it adds a clock to a scenario, which is always a good idea. So if Doug went down, you'd have 3 rounds to bring him back before he died. And then resting here, resting works on an hour system. So getting down to that grain is an interesting idea. If you get to 6 hours, you refill everything. But I think it would be fun if you're going to play at that hourly grain to figure out a way to roll for encounters every hour and think about it that way. So status effects. Again, just a little bit of crunch here. There's bleed effect, burn effect, daze, stun, poison, plague. There are ways for your characters and monsters to trade these abilities. There are also some statuses related to what happens when you hit 0 in certain situations. So if your body hits 0, you become feeble. If your spirit hits 0, you're in fear. If your mind hits 0, you're in delirium. But you could also get these from monsters, for example. Again, like, love this big, bold artwork that's coming through here. And here we get to our weapon categories. It's not going to give you a full list of weapons. It's going to say, look, these are the 4 weapon categories, unarmed to heavy. So my weight here is 4, which I got right. My damage here is 5. So if this thing's hit, it's going to do 5 damage, which is a lot. We'll see that in a second. Now, the way armor and shields work in the system is armor negates damage. So if you are in heavy armor and you take a hit, let's say it's, no matter what it is, if it's 5 damage, you can say, I'm going to have my armor take that. My armor is going to be reduced 1 level to level 3, let's say, and I'm not going to take any damage from it. And that's where the repair ability comes in. And there is a non attributed ability called repair. And so armor sort of functions as a way for you to keep going without having to rest. And then it sort of says, if I don't do the repair work, though, during my rest time, it's probably going to be more lethal for me to go forward. So it's an interesting way to for players to sort of push it when they're in a scenario. It would be good to do in a larger dungeon crawl, like, well, they've gone down a couple levels. They've really got to get out, or they've got to get to a certain scenario in a certain amount of time. Are they going to repair their armor, or are they going to, press on and get out of here because they know the longer they stay down here, the more dangerous it is. So I would try to play up that mechanic so they have that risk versus reward play to happen. Gives you an example of play, always appreciated in any sort of role-playing game book. This should be mandatory, especially when you're introducing a new system. It gives you a bestiary here, and the monsters here are great. Great art here from guest artist Michael Harmon. The bestiary is simple. It's really just giving you HP. A rank is kind of your general power level. So HP 3, if I hit him with my two-handed cleaver, if I hit this gobbo, he's down. And again, it's just going to be a straight strength roll. And it gives you attacks that they could do on you. So it implies that they have the same mechanics as the players. They can take 2 actions, move, attack. And it's sort of, again, thinking of this as a toolbox. So your GM, as the GM, I can say, I'm going to move and I'm going to bite. And then the next turn, I'm going to groin kick and then I'm going to slash with this gobbo. And gives you a little bit of flavor here as well. I like how when they talk about goblins in this world that they can climb walls like a spider, which is kind of sets these goblins, I think, apart. It'd be fun to play that up. There are some also kind of trap-like monsters that they have here as well that you could easily import into your own games, like this living blood, which tries to get into you, and you can sort of scare it away. It just looks like blood on the ground, but if it has any open wounds, it can try to get into them and attack people. Kind of also classic horror D&D monsters like zombie, slime, werewolf. Again, demon. Again, this is leaning into that horror theme. Harpies, giant toads, elementals. Your Wicker, again, a more of a horror-based character. Spiders, leeches, crawlers, a major demon. So giving you a good range of power levels to play with. Again, realizing that this is a framework and a toolbox. You're probably going to create your own monsters on top of this. These are examples of what they could look like when you build them out. I love this interpretation of a demon, all its different parts. Gives you some example characters, showing off a little bit of the diversity here. There is but it does give you a way to kind of get to those archetypes as well. A lot of people would want to play a barbarian or a berserker, a barehanded brawler, a spell slinger. Also showing you kind of something a little bit different, like a blood mage or a divine knight, probably close to a paladin for sure, but showing you how I think you could mix these around to make your own. A nice table here for weird monster maker, quick on the fly, with this really great picture here of this terrible, I don't know, abomination. Another nice little artwork here telling you how you roll a D66 and giving you a whole bunch of loot. So it gives you a lot of fun little detailed loot here, like a small glass bottle completely wrapped in twine. Contains a single drop of whatever was inside. Drinking the liquid gives the drinker +3 body on their next turn. What does it taste like? So a little bit of a hook there. Could lead to something more, perhaps. A thick iron ring with 1 armor point. If the wearer chooses to block with their bare fist, a shimmering translucent shield blocks the blow. Upon use, the ring breaks. So, again, a fun little item there to toss in. Cool weapon generator. Let's see. Bearing this weapon repels slimes, rats, and canines. It grows faintly in the dark. This weapon can be tossed in the air. Upon landing, it will point towards the nearest trap. So a lot of little details, again, that you could bring into your own game very easily. Character creator giving you some unique quirks, philosophies, possessions, and then finally a wonderful little adventure here. So this is a great little dungeon crawl adventure called the Birthday Goblin King. You're fighting those gobos, but this is a scenario where it does talk about there being dozens of goblins asleep in this chamber. So if you just rush in as a group of heroes, you're going to be in a lethal scenario. So this really is a great dungeon crawl that is, while there is kind of your standard, I'm fighting some goblins, I'm fighting spiders, it also requires a certain amount of puzzle solving, because you don't want to wake up this whole nest of goblins or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You basically have to go in here, find I think it says, there's a nice illustration here. Happy birthday. Another illustration here from Billy Blue. You've got to go it's the birthday of this Goblin King, and you have to get the Baron's son back. So very simple. I would start the players off right here in the beginning after they created their character. You could run through this in one night very easily, but there would be a lot of scenarios that would have your characters kind of scratching their heads, and even with their magical abilities that they might have to start off, they're going to have trouble thinking about how they're going to get this human out of this goblin cave without waking everybody up. So really great that that's provided there. Again, I also think it should be mandatory that an adventure is included in any new system book. It really gives you an idea of how to run the game. Ends off with a brief terminology glossary here and an example of a character sheet, or you can use this one, which I will have available for download on Tabletop Bookshelf. So that is it. That is TLD RPG. Too long didn't. I ended up talking for over 30 minutes, and I think that speaks to, there's a lot underneath this cover. I think it definitely bears, it lends itself to comparisons to Morkborg, because it is kind of this smaller rules light system, but it's really a different thing. It's not holding on to any of the old D&D D20 systems. Really makes you think about, and again, there's no classes. It's just this ability, kind of build your character as you want. And I think it's more accessible, frankly. It's going to be easier to tell people, look, we're just going to be using these dice. Let's just build. All you have to worry about is this. Here's a list of cool abilities. Pick a couple, pop them in there, and let's get going on the dungeon adventure. And I think it would be. This is a great book for anyone who, first off, appreciates good fantasy art. Like I said, some great surprises in here. And then the other thing is, for if you are curious about how you could do this dungeon crawling adventure, but break it from our D20 the traditional D20 system, and also have a way to consider these mechanics really stripped down. What do they mean? What are they for? And how can you squeeze the most out of it without overthinking it? So that is it. That is TLD RPG. Wonderful piece of work here from Billy Blue. Thanks for joining me on this flip through. And if you're interested, this is available as always at Tabletop RPG, Tabletop Bookshelf.